Well, hello everyone. Super excited to be bringing you guys some great information about what's happening with the DREC Alliance. And I'm not alone. I have legends in this space that are going to be joining us. So we got a stage full of incredible people that not only started this alliance, but are continuing to add to it. And we will should have some more special guests joining us shortly. But let's get this show on the road. Let's kick things off. And I would love to introduce you all to no one other than Lehman here. Lehman, you were one of the first people that started this thing out. I mean, if you look up anywhere DREC Alliance online, your name is all over the place. If you don't mind, give us a little introduction. Tell us who you are.
Oh, hey. So I'm Lehman. I'm the co-founder of Hadera and Hashgraph and the DREC Alliance. It's just really exciting to be here with you today. So thanks.
Man, so humble, Lehman, every single time. Someone else that we have here, John, John Woods. If you don't mind saying hello, let everybody know who you are and how you fit into this whole puzzle.
Sure, absolutely. Hey, I'm John Woods. I'm the CTO at the Algorand Foundation. And so I represent Algorand, and Algorand's a layer one blockchain. And, when the opportunity came up to work with leading industry participants like Lehman and like the others on this call, it was a no-brainer. Make the user experience better. That's what DREC's all about.
I love it. I love it. I love it. David, let me go right over to you, sir.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me and all of us on. I'm David Fueling, Director of Software Engineering in Ripple X. So we're, of course, a big contributor to the XRP Ledger ecosystem. And I'm just super excited to see kind of this cross-industry effort. So yeah, glad to be here.
So happy to have you. Now over to Charles, and we're talking Cardano Charles over here.
Hey, everybody. Charles Hoskinson here. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Input Output, and I'm really excited to be part of the DREC Alliance.
Love having you here. Now let's go over to the Hadera, Charles.
Yeah, hey, everyone. I'm Charles, the current president at Hadera. Glad to be joining the DREC Alliance as one of the newest members. And I can say that having this group of people join a call with a 1 week notice, people should know that this is a pretty important topic. So thank you all for joining.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. It is definitely super important. I mean, legends don't come together in this space for nothing, right? So last but definitely not least, Romain.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Input Output, working with Charles. Happy to build bridges between ecosystems in this call.
I appreciate having all of you guys here. Now, for the ones of you that might not be aware, the DREC Alliance is really looking to unite all these leading decentralized organizations to create a safety net for Web3 users. And today's conversation is going to be incredible. I'm so excited to have so many amazing people on this call. Lehman and John, let me just kick it off with you guys. For you, Lehman, what was the initial vision of bringing DREC together, and how has it changed possibly since then?
Yeah. So we have this huge problem in our industry. Everyone knows it. People lose their key and then they lose everything they own, all their crypto, all their NFTs, everything. And you can give it to a custodian, but then sometimes they aren't reliable. We all understand this. What you need to do is take your secret, you break it into pieces, you give it to friends and family or businesses that do this as a business, and then your device needs to check with them every day to make sure they still have it. If you do that, you're in a much better position. It's a safety net. Everyone sees this problem. Everyone could create a protocol to solve it. It's not rocket science. But the danger is that everyone's going to create a different protocol. And then you'll be using a wallet on one blockchain, I'll be using a wallet on another blockchain, and we can't talk to each other. We can't help each other. We can't hold pieces of secrets for each other. That's the danger. The danger is that we go into a million different directions and we're incompatible. And that's what the DREC Alliance is about. Let's all get together as an industry. I am so excited to see the traction here. We're all coming together to say, let's all come up with a single protocol so that a wallet on one ledger will work with a wallet on another ledger and we can help each other and beyond our industry. We're starting with our industry, but go beyond and have password managers and identity managers and passcode systems. All those should all be interoperable. And that's what this is about, is getting everyone to use it. So I'm very, very excited at the names that are on this call and the names that are now part of the Alliance, and we're just getting started.
I love what you guys are doing. I mean, essentially, this is the ISO of Web3 is the way I'm looking at it. But John, let me go over to you. Can you kind of set the scene, maybe in simple terms, and explain what the DREC Alliance is set out to do for those that might not be aware?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You know, it's like a Web3 version of standards for web browsers. You know, when we get on this call, we all type www.streamyard.com or whatever into the browser. And all the browsers that we're using, different browsers, they all speak the same language. They all know how to parse HTML. They all know how to navigate the internet. And of course, it would be ridiculous if browsers all had different approaches to how a website is rendered, okay? And so DREC is really trying to standardize and streamline a decentralized mechanism for storing and safely recovering your crypto assets. And so, you know, fortuitously, Lehman and I were on a panel together at a conference, I don't know, about a year ago. And he was kind of it was the early stages of DREC. And he was saying to me, you know, I have this idea for how we could do a decentralized, streamlined, great user experience for managing the safe storage and recovery of crypto keys, so that people can enjoy the decentralization and enjoy all of the self-sovereignty without having to worry about the incumbent responsibility of ensuring that you never lose that private key. And so I was really excited about it when Lehman explained that not only was this technology decentralized in its implementation, but also it was non-biased, non-partisan. It wasn't using Hadera tech over Cardano tech or Solana tech over Algorand tech. It was using off-the-shelf cryptographic primitives that we've known and used for many years. And so it was a very fortuitous situation, and I was delighted to be a co-founder of the Alliance. And I think the biggest challenge, as Lehman's already alluded to, is not the technical one. It's not about the post-quantum stuff or the cryptographic stuff. Instead, it's about building the gravity well, building the social movement that is DREC, and having the folks join like Ripple and more recently like IOG. It really adds tremendous weight to the movement.
And it's so great to have everybody here on stage. This doesn't happen very often, and it's really, really exciting to me just to see just such amazing people on a single stage. And just so everybody's aware, we're nearing about 2,000 live viewers right now. So if you were wondering if the DREC Alliance is going to go anywhere, well, that should tell you something. It is 9 a.m. on the Pacific, on the Pacific coast here, and people are tuning in and wanting to know more about this stuff. So let me go over to the Charles over here. So both the Cardano and the Hadera Charles, Input and Output and Hadera have joined the DREC Alliance as founding members. What made you both want to get involved with this initiative in the first place? And maybe we'll start with Cardano.
Okay. So we've been involved in kind of foundational research and development for a really, really long time. You know, we have labs from Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, University of Wyoming, University of Athens, Tokyo Institute of Technology, and University of Edinburgh. We've written about 211 papers, and we have 168 scientists. So we're pretty good at the research side of things. And wallet security, wallet recovery has always been kind of the big bugbear that everybody's been trying to solve. And one part of it is technology. The other part of it is standardization and adoption across the industry, as John alluded to. And so, you know, I thought this problem may have been solved by a company called Unbound Security years ago. That was Yehuda Lindell's company. Unfortunately, Coinbase bought them and took all the good MPC stuff into Coinbase and doesn't share it. So that's kind of sad. But there's a lot of cool standards. There's like DIDs and self-sovereign identity. There's anon-creds. There's a SWI has ZK login. There's all this stuff that floats around. But at the end of the day, it's all moving in the direction of the number one problem that everybody, when you poll them and ask them, what is their hesitancy of using cryptocurrency? It's, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my keys. And part of being your own wallet means that you also have your own responsibility to preserve and protect your stuff. And even OGs in the space, we all send test transactions for a reason. And we're always paranoid, like, God, am I going to lose access to a wallet or not? So creating easy consumer experiences where it's easy to recover your keys, as well as add additional security where and when that makes sense, especially as you go from the individual to the enterprise, it makes intrinsic sense. So we have a lot of great R&D we've done, as has Hadera and Algorand and many other institutions. The challenge now is no longer technology. There's plenty of papers and approaches. The challenge now is how do we get to the right set of standards? And I'm very encouraged by things that happen at the W3C, for example, with the evolution of the DID standard, that I think we could achieve something here at DREC that's equivalent. We build wallets, our ecosystem has wallets, and if we get a large cohort of people that are cross-chain to adopt this, within a few years, it'll just become a standard feature, and that will open the floodgates and get mainstream crypto adoption and bring millions of more people into all of our ecosystems respectively.
You couldn't have said it better. What is it? It's this good old Spider-Man quote: "Great power comes great responsibility." And I think a lot of us have lost wallets, and I mean personally, I've lost wallets over 10 years ago. And let me tell you, a lot of Bitcoin has been burned for all of you guys' sake. So you're welcome. But Charles, Charles Atkins, let me go over to you. Can you tell us a little bit more why you wanted to get involved with this initiative?
Yeah, I think for us at Hadera, and me in particular, just seeing these cycles go through before, not only in technology, but even previous to that in, just modern industry in general, we typically go from a large group of people all doing kind of their own thing. And then you start the standardization process. And that's really when you start solving the big problems. I mean, we saw that in the 1920s with the auto industry, over 700 auto brands. You start standardizing parts processes, you get down to some larger brands that solve some big problems and eventually get highways built. DREC Alliance, is really a consumer-facing solution to things that we all know are a problem, but really it's kind of the first step in a much bigger issue that we want to tackle in the industry as a whole. And that's broader standardization to really think about the big problems that are out there. By 2030, we're going to have 9 billion people, which is great. Everyone thinks, there could be DLT technology that handles 9 billion people, but we're forgetting the fact that every IoT device, every sensor, I mean, these things may have their own accounts eventually. And when you start thinking about that level of data interoperating between things that are not standardized, it really kind of gives you the scale of what we're trying to solve. DREC is an incredible first step. All of the people here are incredible and working on really big problems. And I think, password recovery, and I love when Lehman gives the analogy of, when you lock yourself out of a house, you can call a locksmith or you can throw a brick through the window, which is, I love imagining Lehman throwing bricks through windows to get into his house. But password recovery is kind of that first step in normalization for a consumer-facing product. And I think once we can overcome those hurdles, we start looking deeper into the tech, solving these really big problems. Because, I mean, frankly, the world's going to change dramatically over the next decade with all of the technologies converging at once. And I think it takes a really strong group of people to standardize and keep it decentralized the way that, we hope to see it happen.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I completely agree. And let me bring it over to Ripple. So, David, you all joined the Rec Alliance back in May. How has these last few months kind of been? Is there any highlights, anything that you've seen that you might want to share?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal, honestly. So shout out to Lehman and John and team in particular. Like when we first joined, just so smooth. You could really tell a lot of work had been put in, not only on the protocol and the technical side, but also the organizational side. So just lots of confidence from day one. And what gets me most excited is sort of the open and inviting atmosphere, right? It's exciting to do things in the open, in my opinion. This really is an open source, collaborative initiative, and just saw that from day one. So that was really a highlight for me right from the get-go. I think another highlight is just the momentum. So when Ripple joined, there was a cohort of lots of impressive, amazing companies and people that came along right at the time we did. And then I think just recently we've seen another example of that where more and more members are coming. You see a lot of them on the call here. So that's just so exciting. Definitely a highlight is to see a real cross-industry open effort. And then I guess last but not least is on the protocol itself. So there's been great momentum, a great foundation to start from. And then momentum on, we've got a reference implementation in Java. You can see that in GitHub, a crypto implementation in Rust that I think can be applied to a bunch of other implementations, and even protocol improvements, even just over the last few months. One in particular that sticks out to me is the sort of how will the protocol work in a post-quantum world? And the short answer is I think it will, and it's neat to see that even feeding back and making iterative improvements in the protocol itself. So yeah, those are the kind of big picture highlights that come to mind for me, just even in the last 4 months.
That's amazing. I mean, it's definitely a lot has happened. A lot has been, has changed over the course of just a very short period of time. Let me bring it back to you, Lehman, because we're here with some founding members. It's great, but there's a whole lot more to it. I mean, there are crazy number of alliance members from the DLT. Science Foundation, there's Hashpack, there's Oasis Protocol Foundation, Palisade. There's just a ton of them. What are their roles going to be, and what do you think their experience is going to be like when you bring these big four, into the Rec Alliance?
Oh, I love this. So it's not just the people on this call. We have a lot of organizations that have joined the Alliance. And what we're seeing is right now, as we speak, they are implementing this protocol into wallet software for blockchains. They're implementing it into client software for your bank, client software for your credit union, and other applications. We are already seeing this. And we see research going on this too. I love the comment we just heard. In a world where you have giant quantum computers that can attack cryptography, is this secure? And this is something we're working on right now. And so we have all these people that are joining. They're joining to help design it. They're joining to help implement it into their products. Oh, there it is on the screen. Oh yeah, look at all those names. It looks like, I don't know if there's stuff cut off at the bottom, maybe not. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. And so I am excited that people keep joining rapidly, which is good. And they're building it into products, which is good. And they're getting involved in looking for the rough edges and sanding off the rough edges. And I would encourage the people on this call, you don't have to even be a company. Anyone can come and get involved. It's all in GitHub. It's all open source. Come contribute some code or contribute an issue that says there's a problem. Just get involved. I love it. And if you do have a product, and not just Web3 products, but a password manager or a game that has assets in the game that need to be protected, or something with DIDs, with self-sovereign identity, come talk to us and we can help you to implement it into your product.
So incredible. And you're right. There are so many different applications for this. And we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I'm getting a ton of comments saying, wow, there's over 1,500 people watching a stream. I'll remind everybody, this is actually getting streamed out to multiple different channels, platforms. So the actual number, we're getting close to about 4,000 people watching right now. So just as a reminder, this is the YouTuber in me. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. If you guys have comments, questions, leave those down below as well, because it absolutely helps get more traction on this video and get more people to find out about the importance of keeping your wallet and assets secure. Back to you, John. Both Hadera and the Input-Output will hold 2-year terms on a technical oversight committee, and we're probably going to hear the TOC a lot, while we're talking about this whole movement that we're doing. And that's what I like to see it as. It's a movement, because it's not only the DREC Alliance. This is going to get adopted by so many smaller, not only companies, but projects and people. What does it do? What does this committee actually function to do? And what does it mean to be a founding member of it?
Sure. And, I just want to echo what Lehman said just before I answer that. It's so great to see the heavy hitters join this. And, taking that step that Ripple, Hadera, Hashgraph, IOG, Cardano, etc., have taken makes this thing happen. It gives it the life it needs and the gravity well that it needs to propagate and to become, a ubiquitous standard. And so I'm thrilled at these folks joining. So yeah, the technical oversight committee is quite simple. When you join as a founding member, which folks have on this call, you automatically get a seat on the technical oversight committee, and one can think of it as stewards of the project. So essentially, those with a lot of experience across the industry, of course, represented very well on this call, who understand the engineering, the architecture, the applied cryptography, who understand the nuance of the users of our products. And the duty of the Technical Oversight Committee is really just to guide the protocol to a good place, make sure that we're making sane, rational, and reasonable choices about the protocol and its augmentation, be that, as David mentioned, things like which post-quantum primitives to use when we're trying to make sure that it works in a post-quantum context, or even simpler things like how do we market it? Who do we try to recruit next into the alliance in order to make it as strong as possible? And so it won't be though. So I'm a part of that as a founding member. I hold a seat alongside my old colleague Romain, who's just joined as well, who brings a wealth of experience, and of course the guys from Hadera and Ripple. But we won't all be on it forever, so it rotates over time. And so I can't remember exactly. I think it's a 2-year term, maybe it's a year, but after that period, we rotate, and new folks can come onto the technical oversight committee. So really, just to steward the project to a good place.
I love it. So it's not a matter of making it all about yourself. It's just a matter of taking it to the next level, which is super exciting. Now, let me bounce over to David from Ripple X here. The founding team is complete. Now we have all the pieces in place. How do you think this cross-platform protocol will improve the user experience and create possibly new utility for Web3 users? Because this is a big deal.
Yeah, totally. I think Charles said it, maybe alluded to it, that we know moving forward there's just going to be a lot more users coming into crypto. I really believe that the population is growing, but I think our industry is growing. And I think one key problem for our industry, especially Web3 crypto industry, to solve is how do we make sure that non-custodial key holders don't lose their keys? Because if they do, probably going to mean lost value. So I like to think, it's a part of our industry, but how are we going to compete against traditional TradFi from this perspective? In TradFi, like I think somebody said it already on the call, if you lose access, there's some central intermediary that you can go to, and they'll fix it. That's a problem to be solved for us. DREC, I think, plays a key role there. So to that problem in our industry, we're seeing some companies enter the market with solutions here, right? There's the obvious recovery, use a device, use a piece of paper, that kind of thing. We're also seeing kind of social and sharded key recovery solutions coming to market. But I think this standardization piece is going to be key all around. So if I think of it from like a startup perspective, as an industry, we want to make sure startups get it right. Some startups are small; they don't have all the expertise. So having a jumping off point in the form of DREC to make sure that as an industry we're all getting it right, I think is going to be super powerful. And then even for larger companies, imagine a Coinbase or a Ledger. Key recovery is sensitive, and I think for any wallet experience, we're going to want to make sure that users feel familiar and have confidence in that solution. So bringing a standard like DREC to bear, I think, is actually going to be table stakes, frankly, for companies large and small. So from that perspective, the key idea is many more users, and we need to do it right by them and make sure that their funds are safe.
Yeah, that safety is literally everything. Now, going over to you, Charles Atkins, over in Hadera. You've been in Web3 for quite some time now. Why do you think it took so long for something like this to actually become a thing, for this initiative to be created? And more than that, how long until we actually see this being adopted by the masses? And do you see any challenges? Because we're talking about different ecosystems here. Are we going to have interoperability issues when we start deploying this everywhere?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say kind of early on in the industry, everyone is very focused on building their version of what's best. And, that, again, this is a very typical cycle, and you put it on a really long scale timeline. This is pretty standard to what happens in any type of industry and technology. So I do think a lot of people wanted to build their particular products the best first, and then you start thinking about the larger challenges. You start interacting with each other, you start coming together in these groups and thinking, hey, if we really work together on these things, this could be really interesting to solve some of the biggest challenges out there, and some of the biggest challenges to getting broader adoption. DREC and a password recovery is obviously a pretty early, like, primitive standard to getting people to understand what Web3 and what crypto can be. People are used to this all the time. They, you lose your password to your email, you just click a little button that says forgot password. Why do we not have that in Web3, or why did we not prior to this initiative have that in Web3? And it's because, people hadn't really come together yet and started thinking about standardizing processes for consumers. And I think now we're here, and now this is kind of a jumping off point for people to work together more deeply. There are obviously some pretty broad technical challenges that people on this call would know a lot better than I would when it comes to getting full interoperability between every chain and every DLT. But even to the earlier point, DREC should also be working with Web 2 and with kind of legacy technology. This doesn't mean that a bank today couldn't also decentralize their recovery systems today. They don't necessarily have to be, quote unquote, a Web3 company. So these are the types of things I think people should really be thinking about, just for broader safety and security of their customers and their users. This actually is a better way to do a traditional kind of activity. So that's something that I think is really interesting. As far as getting into broader mass adoption, we think about this global adoption. It's going to be one of those things where challenges are going to create those opportunities, and whether that come through people having the understanding that AI data provenance may actually need version control, or we may actually need to start thinking about IoT and smart cities, and actually if these devices have been verified by the organizations that place them there. DLT and blockchain is a great way to do that. Tokenization of, even let's say space technology. Right now, if you want to go and lease some data from a satellite, you're probably going to have to get 200 kilometers for your research that may be helping climate change. Well, for a researcher, for a small company, getting access to that's going to be difficult. What if you start tokenizing down to the hectare of what you can actually look at to solve a particular problem for your community? And all of these things are going to require us to have verified data, safe data, recovery of that data, which this is a great start to, in order to make that consumable by people in a way that makes them feel safe. I think that is the thing that has been blocking a lot of people from this particular industry, is the perception that actually is true. It's not just a perception. If you lose your keys, you lose all of your recovery passwords, like you're pretty screwed. So this is a great solution to kind of start down that pathway of getting people to feel safer. And I think that's always a first step to get people into technology, make them feel that it's safe to use.
Yeah, talking about being screwed. Yes, I have been there, done that. I know exactly the feeling. It is not a very good one. But talking about somebody that is a little bit more technical, like you were saying, Romain, let me go to you. From a technical point of view, do you think we'll continue to face these challenges in Web3 as far as onboarding new users go? Because to be fair, a lot of people are still either unfamiliar, skeptical, they don't trust digital wallets, or they feel, or they don't know what to do. They lack that technical knowledge, right? How big of an impact do you think that DREC can have on changing this perception of the general public?
So it's a large question. The current challenges of Web3 in general starts with a very high complexity. First, you have to understand crypto and blockchain, right? What are the good reasons to use it? What are the concepts? They are very technical. There's a lot of new verbiage, words that you have to learn. Then you have to pick one cryptocurrency by the thousands on the market, right? You have to find a wallet. You have to set up a wallet. You have to fund your wallet with fiat, right? So how do you actually go to Coinbase or other services, and then from your fiat, acquire that crypto, and then send a transaction to fund your wallet? You need to understand how to create transactions and send money to the right recipients. So you have to check your recipient address dozens of times before whitelist it in order to not make an error in sending the money to the wrong address, wallet. And then after, you have to navigate and interact with dApps, right? So all of this is a high complexity for a user, basic user. Then you have the responsibility of self-custody of your crypto asset. So you have a private key, you have a seed phrase. It's it's very concerning to have this information that classically you have guarantees of safety nets through traditional financial system, where even if you lose your password, you can always recover it with a centralized entity, institutional entity. You have unintuitive interfaces. If you go to wallets, we are trying to work on it as ecosystems, but it still needs to be improved. You have a steep learning curve. And you have security concerns, right? When you actually own your keys, then you need to store them somewhere, right? Recently, I acquired a new hardware wallet. So hardware wallet is supposed to be super secure, but the first step is to write down your seed phrase, right? Your 24 words. Then you are with your paper in your hand and you say, okay, my only way to actually recover my wallet if my hardware wallet is lost is to find that paper again, right? Where do I store it? So I saw some stories of people like hiding it, in the plugs within the walls or in the safe, etc. It's what Direct actually help with, where splitting that key, splitting that seed phrase across the social network, basically your friends, your family, and a mix with institutional custodian as well, is very reassuring, right? In case I lose my paper, I can actually rely on that social recovery structure, on the guardians, and I think that is going to reduce the fear of permanent loss. It's a familiar concept to rely on your family, friends, and institutions to actually recover important data. Your keys, for example, we always like have copies of our keys for our house that we can like give to friends or family in case we lose it. And that balance between self-custody and institutional solutions, I think is very user-friendly. We will, I think, increase trust. There's this safety net effect that we can have through Direct. It simplified the key management. Basically, if you look at things, you could even like construct a social network based on that network of people. You can onboard new people by asking your friends and family to join your circle and help custody your keys. Then it's an introduction for them to the Web3, right, domain. So I think that's super interesting. I think we are in a very complex and risky type of environment, and the future is to go towards something that is more like a seamless user experience, user-friendly, and always secure.
I love that. I mean, bringing it closer to what people understand definitely makes a big difference as far as adoption goes. But talking about the people that are here, we talked about final founding members. So, John, let me ask you. We said that the input, output, and Hadera are the final founding members. You're still looking for more protocols to join the alliance. Are these going to be alliance members? What does that mean exactly?
Absolutely. So people, sorry, excuse me. The Alliance is absolutely looking for further members. There's lots of other big names out there, of course, in the cryptocurrency and Web3 space, and we would be delighted to have them join. And when you join, there's different levels at which you can join. As Lehman has already said, anyone can just rock up, get involved, open a PR on the repo, where the code is, suggest a change, and it will potentially be accepted. And we absolutely want as many folks as possible to integrate the protocol into their canonical wallets, whether that's, for example, Lace within the Cardano ecosystem or Pera within the Algorand ecosystem. And whilst we will of course be delighted to accept further members on the alliance, even if they are paid members rather than say just contributors who will come along and suggest and edit. We won't have any more further founding members. So Cardano or IOG rather, took that last slot, and we're delighted to have them.
I love it. That's great. Lehman, let me go to you real quick. What's going on for the future here? What are some of the future developments that you guys are working on right now? So kind of like, what's the state of the protocol today? And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask this question. When alpha, what's the information that you probably shouldn't tell us, but you're going to anyway because you like us that much? Any of those sneak peeks that you can share with us?
When is the alpha version? We haven't. If you go to GitHub right now, anyone in the world can see a full stack. So we have a demo app that protects some passwords or something. It's just a demo app running on top of an API, running on top of libraries, running on top of the protobuf definitions of the messages themselves. It's a full stack that works. And it's all open source. You can read through the source code. You can download it and play with it and do whatever you want with it. So we have this full stack. So where do we go from here? Well, first of all, we need everyone to get together and say, okay, are there any rough edges? Do we want to fix anything? The longer we wait, the harder it becomes to change anything. So is there anything that needs to be fixed? We want to be able to do that. We want to be able to do code audits on the code and make sure that it's actually usable. And then we want everyone who has an application to start implementing it, which should be easy. You just incorporate these libraries, you add a few lines of code, and suddenly you are a helper and a sharer for DREC. It should be extremely easy for app builders. So if you have a wallet, add it. That's what we want to do. In addition, anyone who wants to come contribute, there's lots of little things to change. You can do those. You can make contributions and change the code. You can make suggestions and submit issues. And then we have the new projects. Maybe you want to come and start one of the new projects. So I told you we had this whole stack. The whole stack is in Java, except the cryptography library is in Rust. That's the whole stack. Great place to start. But that's not enough. We absolutely need this to be in other languages so that it works on iOS, Android, and inside the browser. So that's 3 languages right there that you need. So you need Swift and Kotlin and TrueType or JavaScript or something. You've got to do that. And then why not a million other languages? Because people write apps in a million languages, and it's more convenient to use libraries in your own language. So we need start projects for each of those. And then there's other things that we're looking at, like post-quantum that we've talked about. We now have just recently NIST finally approved an algorithm that they think can be protected against giant quantum computers. They think it's safe, or the world's cryptographers think it's safe. So we're modifying the protocol to allow you to use that so that you'll be safe even when giant quantum computers get built. And then even if you don't want to do code, go talk to people. Get more people in the community to do it. And even we can go to other industries. So I love what I am seeing in the Web3 industry. All the blockchains and DLTs are getting together to solve a real problem for our users and to have a standard that's interoperable. That's just our industry. We need to spread this to the industry of password managers. They don't work together at all. And we need to spread this to the industry of self-sovereign identity. They are interested in interoperability, but we need to do this DREC to protect the secrets at the core of self-sovereign identity. If you have DIDs and self-sovereign identity and all of that, there's always a secret key or something at the core of it that allows you to prove that you are you. We've got to protect that. And then there's the other industries, pass keys. People are getting rid of passwords and going to pass keys. Well, that also involves the secret at the core. So what we want to do is, as an industry, we are already showing the world the way for an industry to cooperate together. I love the people on this call working together. There are really smart teams on this call, represented by the people on this call. I love the way they're working together. Let's be an example to other industries and talk to them about getting involved as well. So thanks.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. There's so many incredible people on this call alone, which brings me to a little fun question here. What's next for each one of you guys as far as your companies are concerned? Anything you guys might want to share, any new collaborations you might be working on? And I know for a fact that Charles Hoskinson, you were a little bit short on time. So let me go to you first.
Well, we work with a lot of consortia these days. Probably our largest collaboration across enterprise is the Hyperledger Foundation, and they have more than 350 companies. And I think just this year, Chainlink, Layer Zero, Intersect, a lot of others have joined. And there we actually have 2 Hyperledger projects that we've contributed. One was a blockchain building framework called ScoreX, but the more relevant one is actually a self-sovereign identity stack. Used to be Atala Prism. The contribution there is now called a dentus, but it's a self-sovereign identity unit. Lehman's absolutely correct. The biggest challenge right now in the cryptocurrency industry is how do we add identity into cryptocurrency but preserve the ethos of Satoshi and the principles of Web3. The naive way of doing it is you have a central actor come in and give you an identity, but then they basically have God mode over your data, your experience, and ultimately the on and off ramps of the system, which violates the entire point of why we use cryptocurrencies to begin with. So how do you derive a concept of decentralized identity, decentralized reputation, decentralized data management? That's all very closely related to the control of your private keys and the use of your wallet experience. And so that's an area that we've been thinking a lot about. For example, we've been working very closely with the state of Wyoming, and they've been talking around, well, how do we create a stable coin for the state of Wyoming? Because they recently passed a law there, and they're going to be issuing basically a coin to compete with Circle and Tether. And it's the first US state to do this. And they're very predictably thinking, hang on a second here, like what does this mean for compliance and all this other stuff? Well, we need some form of an identity system. It's the same for verified voting. And let's say you're a member of a DAO, or there's so many projects that have decentralized governance or governance tokens, and they're trying to think around carefully, well, how do we actually get people to participate, and how do we verify the people who are participating are the people who are actually connected to our project, not necessarily just own an NFT or own the token, but maybe there's some other roles that are there. So those are very closely related to the concept of your keys, basically, because there's some concept of controlling that. And the issue is, as people have alluded to in this call, people don't have the level of technical sophistication required to do that at a very granular level. The original dream of the internet, with PGP and Web of Trust, it started in 1991. That was John Callis and Phil Zimmerman, and actually one of the founders of Bitcoin, Hal Finney, and others. They wrote all those initial standards, and they had this vision that the internet wouldn't have passwords and usernames, but rather you would register a public key, and every login event would be basically a challenge response protocol that existed. And they said, well, this is amazing. It's super secure, and it's just sign a transaction, and that's how you log in. And you can do e-commerce over these channels and everything. And they're 100% right. It was a vastly superior way of handling the internet than the way we handle it currently. Unfortunately, it never took off because it didn't have that consumer appeal. And so we have that same issue with cryptocurrencies. Is effectively under the hood, you're managing a public-private key pair, and consumers are notoriously bad at that. And then there's the broader conversation of how do you link that to identity? Where do you derive privacy from? How do you start building metadata around these types of things? They're a very closely related house of projects. Another thing is that it's not just ease of use for the user, the end user, the retail user, but then there's also ease of use for the developer, because not all developers are created equally. There's a world of difference between the developers that are core developers at Algorand or Hashgraph or Ripple, who are very experienced. They typically have great credentials. They've been around for 10 or 15 years. They're writing distributed systems code, cryptographic code. That's a lot of work. And it's a lot of training. It's a lot of knowledge. I spent years of my career assembling an engineering team and leading that team. And it's been a challenge to make sure that we adhere to a certain level of quality. Well, typically the output of that effort are libraries and interfaces and other such things that are then accessible by developers downstream who are trying to solve a particular problem for their business for a particular customer, but they don't have a background in cryptography or distributed systems or all these other things. So another one of the big challenges is, okay, whatever proposed solutions exist, they have to be purportable, they have to be understandable, they have to be interoperable, they have to be easy to use, there has to be clean and beautiful documentation that exists for it. And also we have to make sure that it's audited. Even YubiKey, which is like the gold standard of access control right now, apparently they have an issue with a side channel attack in their keys. And because of a design decision, you can't update the firmware with it. Almost every YubiKey in circulation actually can suffer from this side channel attack. So even the big guys, they kind of get it wrong. And so it's super important that we understand that there's high quality here. And that's another thing that we specialize in. We're one of the largest formal methods firms in the world. for cryptographic engineering. And we have a lot of partners like Galwa that work with DARPA, and they do military contracting, and they're in the extended family, a lot of research centers that we work with. So that's one of our primary contributions as well, in addition to kind of looking at what the contributions have been and trying to figure out how do you reconcile that with the identity side, and then go talk to the Hyperledger people, because more than $6 billion of software sitting there. And as I mentioned, 350 plus companies participating. So we can go advertise in that respect, but then also having a detailed conversation about how do we ensure that there's enough assurance and interoperability here that this is ubiquitously useful across the industry. And if you get those sides right, that will end up happening is it gets ported across the industry very quickly, and people just adopt it like they do OpenSSL or a lot of these libraries that exist that become kind of ubiquitous in the web world.
Now, you were just IRL with a lot of Web3 people, Charles. You were in Vegas at Rare Evo, which is quote unquote the Cardano conference, as Wes likes to call it sometimes. And you mentioned consumer appeal. I know you just mentioned, some states, different companies, even government organizations, but the people in Web3, are they asking for this? Are they ready for this? And do you think that they're going to implement this rather quickly, or you think it's going to take a long time?
Which Charles are you addressing? Was that
The Charles that flooded Twitter or X with all the cool pictures of you sitting on thrones and having people just photo op with you, Charles Hoskinson?
Yeah. Okay. So and can you summarize the question one more time? Sorry, I lost the thread.
No, not at all. If I
Yeah.
can make you laugh, it's totally worth it. Just wondering, as far as that consumer appeal, because you mentioned the consumer appeal being
Yeah.
an important part, like what's the pulse of people in Web3? Because you were just with a bunch of
Yeah.
Web3 people in person.
Every developer has this problem. Even if they don't know they have this problem, they have this problem, they need this problem. It's a situation where the minute that they build something, they get flooded with users that come to them, say, hey, I lost my access to my wallet. Can you help me get my password back? And we're like, no, the protocols don't work this way. The next email you get is, you've stolen my funds. My lawyer is going to sue you. So when you're a Web3 developer, you very quickly run into a situation where people treat you like a Web2 platform, and they treat you like Facebook, and they have this thing in their head that there's a safety net, and that somehow the developer has magical power to resolve their problem. So everybody at the end of the day needs this, and the problem is they actually don't know how to solve the problem. It's an unsolved problem in the industry. So if you have a standard, the standard seems to be taking up traction. It's a no-brainer, because they say, okay, well, as long as I have assurances it's not going to blow up my face, let's go use this and let's go get this done. So an alliance like this is a necessary, not completely sufficient, there's still more things to do, but a very necessary step forward in trying to solve one of the hardest problems that exists, which is kind of pivoting with a set of tools back to the consumer, the control of their private keys in a way that they understand, if anything, to understand that when they lose their keys, it's not the developer's fault. It's actually the end user's fault. And that ameliorates some of the liability. So yeah, it always comes up. It never comes up at the beginning of the project. Typically, John can attest this, other people could attest it, about 6 months to a year afterwards, when they actually get customers and users and traction and adoption. And then it just all goes to hell.
Yeah, I've seen it one too many times, unfortunately. That's the same situation for so many different little pieces of the puzzle that people are trying to solve with gaming. I think it's netcode. Nobody knows how to write good netcode until things stop working, right? Like there's always something that people seem to forget until it really matters. Just like security, nobody likes to talk about security until it really matters. So it's good to have these conversations and have a whole alliance actually dedicated to making sure that people's funds are not only safe but accessible by them at any given time. So Lehman, appreciate it, man. Like, this is kind of crazy for you to put together, but like, great idea. Really happy that this is actually coming to fruition. And as far as Hashgraph goes, anything going on, any updates, anything that's gonna be maybe right around the curve here for us to be looking out for?
For Hashgraph and the Hadera ecosystem,
Yeah.
well, we have wallets that'll be implementing DREC, so that's cool. I won't talk about just Hadera specific stuff because that's not really this call, but the whole Hadera ecosystem does seem to be excited about DREC. And that's because all of our ecosystems really do have users that need this. And I would say for Web3 to actually be used by 8 billion users on this planet, we have to have a safety net. This is what our industry needs to take the next step. And it's just wonderful to see all the people on this call and the people that keep joining the Alliance. And I would encourage everyone in our ecosystem to join the Alliance.
Well, that brings up a really great question because I'm sure out of the over 7,000 people that have landed their eyes on this stream here, what can people do? Like, how can people get involved? What is it that they can actually, maybe facilitate, assist, or even just getting the word out there? What is it that they can actively do to participate?
Go to the GitHub site and submit issues of things you'd like to fix, or submit actual pull requests for fixing some of them. If you go to drekalliance.org, it has links to that. It has lots of other information. You can also talk to people. If you know people in other blockchains or in other industries that have secrets to be saved for on behalf of the user, talk to them about looking at the drekalliance.org website and doing more. There it is on the screen. Encourage them to look at it, encourage them to talk to us, encourage them to join. Right now, I think all of our members are inside the Web3 community. Let's fix that. Let's get people outside the Web3 community.
I love it, and you're dead on. I mean, there's only so much liquidity in here, so we got to bring new people in. We got to make sure that there's new things going on. This is the most fun question. Is there anything that maybe we didn't cover that you guys, any of you, might think is important for people to know about, other than obviously DREC is happening with all of these incredible names behind it? There's no question that it's going to move forward just like a train, and people are just going to be hopping on like crazy. But anything else maybe that we didn't cover that you think might be important for our listeners to hear about?
I think maybe one other thing in the vein of interoperability, I think DREC is so important. But also, we're going to be talking. Algorand's going to be talking with the folks at the good folks at Cardano about doing partner chains, and there's lots of other interoperability things coming up. And I think we're in the season of interop. We're excited. We've got even our own our biggest DeFi venue. Say our, as in like Algorand's biggest DeFi venue. Is also looking at Ripple and what they can do over there for like NFTs and other things. And so it's great that we're starting to on silo, if that's a word, all of these different social networks and networks of value.
I love it.
And just I have to get going here, but in closing on my side, these things live or die by the people who come. And if you are a developer, come with your problems. Tell us what issues you're having with your customers. Tell us what issues you're having with your ecosystem, and kind of your horror stories where people have lost access to their credentials, or they've had a hacking issue, or what have you. This helps standards evolve and grow, and you really need a dense set of members. And as you solve people's problems, you start developing a reputation as a solution provider. People actually like you, they want to work with you, and it gets stronger and stronger over time. This is no longer a situation where we're sitting in a room with a whiteboard and saying, oh God, how do we solve this? The reality is there's plenty of great technology out there. Lehman just mentioned some of the libraries that he's worked on and things that they've done. There's a lot of great ideas. It's just those ideas now have to be matched. And the minute you put them in actual applications, then you start discovering that perhaps there needs to be a version 2 and a version 3 and a version 4. So my view is we're only successful if we can look back at this moment 5, 10, 15 years later and say this was the moment that the industry as a whole started coming together and having a real adult conversation about how do we get cryptocurrency to a consumer-ready state and into a developer-ready state so that people can come and do great things. I liken it to kind of the rise of Android and iOS. The first generation of application development was done on Windows and Linux, and that was a tough time. It was hard to keep things secure, and things exactly weren't batteries included, and developers made a boatload of mistakes, and Microsoft got blamed for all of them, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. And then when Android came out and iOS came out, because so much knowledge had been gained, they started realizing that there were best practices that could be inculcated into the system, like an app store and other such things, auto updates. And it's just so much slicker, more uniform experience. And consumers are now like, I don't want to go back to that old experience. Yeah, I like kind of how my phone works, and it's one-click install and all this stuff. It just works and it's there. And there's a heck of a lot more security built into those devices. They even have TPMs in them than you would have in a normal Windows box, as an example. And that's a testimony to listening to the customer. We are expected in the Web3 world to adhere to that user experience standard, because billions of consumers have been trained that that is the minimum viable standard for success. And Web3 is never going to become a big thing until we are able to get there. And alliances like these are absolutely necessary for us to get there. So it's great to work with so many wonderful technical minds. I have great respect for a lot of the work Hashgraph has done and John has done, and the Ripple team has been around for a very, very long time. In fact, they were the first divergent protocol from Bitcoin. A lot of people, they say, what about Ethereum and all this other stuff? Well, actually, Ripple was a completely independent piece of technology that built up from the ground up before Bitcoin was even launched. There were a lot of these ideas that were coming with David Schwartz and others. So there's a lot of great technical minds inside that group. And the fact that this is the founding group means that very quickly, for tens of millions of people, we're going to be able to deliver a tremendous amount of value. And then to be able to take that value to the broader Web3 space is a tremendously exciting thing.
Now, I'll just come out and say it. Karate Combat is on Hadera, and a lot of people want to fight you, Charles, on Karate Combat. Is that something you're interested? I'm totally joking. You don't have to answer that. I am just a joke.
No, I think I'm a bit old and fat for these types of. I'm more than happy to be the audience.
There are other old and fat people looking to fight you.
Right.
That's what the IFC is for.
It's like the senior league. Is that what we're doing? Basically.
Right. Well, you just check out Singapore. What's happening at Token 2049? You're going to see what we're talking about.
Okay, I'll see you guys there.
You're going to have a good time.
All right,
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother.
I'll give an idea for free to the audience. I see Direct as a data protocol, basically decentralized and secure. So you can build components on top of the protocol to store specific type of data. You could think about addresses, whitelist. You could think about anything that has a structure that you can replicate from the Web 2 and actually store and help the users leverage Direct to store it. So data ownership is a big thing, but data recovery is you need data recovery if you own things, right? So build components on top.
I think that's. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we see a lot is just the value of data, and having version control over that data is just the importance of that. And it's just because of the scale and the speed and the velocity of data being created every day. We're starting to get into those areas where it's which data do you trust, which data is yours, how do you take ownership of your data. The ideas around data become really interesting, especially data with language models and AI. I know the EU AI Act is coming into play next year, and this could be like a GDPR moment all over again. And these are challenges we all have to think about. But DREC Alliance, again, like just getting this group of people together, and I actually agree with Charles. And before he left, he was talking about really when the initial internet started, the idea was really a decentralized set of information. And then it was just difficult for consumers because a lot of the people working on it were highly academic, thinking at it from a solutions lens when it came to let's just solve this big problem. And the problem was solved, and then the uptake didn't happen until people with more of a consumer mindset came in and made it easier for people to use. I think now we really do have the opportunity for all of us to work together, go through that reset of the internet, owning your own data and being in charge of your own data and using the people you trust to recover your passwords. We have the opportunity to do this again the right way, in a decentralized way, where there's not the idea of centralized control. Obviously at Hadera we have the governing council, which is a lot of large organizations, and they always think about this idea of, oh, we're just going to use an institutional custody provider. Well, I mean, what difference does that make? You're just giving your keys to another person who also has a single point of failure. So, I mean, it's great that you're doing that, and they may have different security protocols, but wouldn't you rather break up your information and give it to people within your organization to be your helpers? I mean, I think that's something that they should really think about. And this is kind of a great step, in doing that. So, I appreciate everything that's being done here. I think this is going to make a big difference in the first step to getting consumers to understand the safety within our industry, and they really can take some of that ownership over their own data and their own lives and their own keys.
And it's such an important thing. And yeah, I mean, people don't realize how important it is when they first get into this space. But I'd say take about a month or two, and they sure enough will lose something, will misplace something and not know what to do. And again, freak out, blame the devs, say, hey, we're going to sue you and all that sort of thing, until they realize like, oh, this is actually a huge, huge deal. We're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But in closing, maybe, and I'll open this up to any of you. Can you, if you can, just in a concise way, explain how the DREC Alliance and all of the GitHub repos that you guys have already put together and allowing other people to collaborate with, how does that work? How does that function? How does it help people keep their funds, their wallets, their assets safe? That would be huge.
Sure. The future of humanity is everything becomes digital. Digital assets, digital identity, digital passkeys for authentication. The whole world is moving in this direction, and you have control of it yourself. This is the future. The problem is that if you have control of it yourself, you can lose it, and then you lose everything. And DREC is all about, in a decentralized way, having multiple people help you so that you never lose everything. It's hard to steal, and you don't lose it. And this is what we're doing. And the only way to achieve it is by cooperation within our industry and other industries. And that's what we're seeing.
I love it. I can't say how thankful I am that you guys are actually working on this. This has been one of those things that has haunted me in this space, from being someone who's lost lots and lots of wallets early on. Before there were, 24-word phrases you could write down where it was only a file. We've come such a long way, and it's incredible to see some incredible minds come together and say, yes, this is important enough for us to collaborate with each other and drive this initiative forward. So thank you for all your efforts, for all your time, and everything you guys are really pouring into this alliance. It really does mean the world, not only to me, but I'm sure to lots of people in this space, because this is how adoption takes place. We make things a little bit easier for the next guy coming along, and we allow them to not be as scared as the first one that jumped in the boat and say, you know what, it might sink, but I'm going to be in here anyway. So we're actually giving people a little bit more security, a little bit more insight as to how they can keep themselves safe and secure in this Web3 world. So thank you all so much. This has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it won't
you.
be the last, right? We're going to do this again.
Absolutely.
All right. This is how we get the commitment, to, even though they didn't say anything.
We're going to do it again until all of us are not receiving phone calls from users asking all of us on this call to send them back their password.
I am absolutely sending my
Because it is
mother this video.
impossible, and it is probably a phone call that all of us get at least once a week. And so for everyone, all 6,000 of you listening, we don't have your passwords, and we don't have your phrases either.
Phenomenal. Wow. All right. Well, glad I got the commitment that we're going to keep this going, because I think it's really important. And obviously, we're reaching the masses. We're reaching a lot of people here. If our live stream is right now at 7,872 people across all the different platforms, I can only imagine how many people are going to watch this, live stream after the fact. So thank you all so much for the time. It's been an incredible conversation, and I really look forward to doing this again soon.
Well, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a ton.